Okay, welcome everybody to today's February 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Finance Committee. This is Councilman Moore, and we're gathered at City Hall. Here with me, we have a full quorum today, and that's great. Appreciate the efforts of Councilman Victor Jones and Mayor Pro Tem Monica Peters and Councilman Michael Holmes. We will not waste any time because it's valuable, and we will jump right into today's agenda. The first item is 2022-32. That's a sole source contract with CI Technologies, and it deals with our High Point Police Department and some Blue Team software. Chief Travis Stroud speak.
All right, thank you for having me. We're looking for City Council to approve a purchase order for a sole source software from CI Technologies for our IA Pro and Blue Team software. To give what we're looking for in layman's terms, North Carolina Senate Bill 300 passed in December. The bill is chock full of things for law enforcement, but specifically what we're talking about here today is all law enforcement agencies across North Carolina are going to be required to develop a system that tracks early warnings for uses of force and other triggers that could be crucial to your agency or your community. Right now, what we do, I need to explain what we do and what we're trying to move to. Well, first, let me say this. I think this is a good thing. Regardless of Senate Bill 300, pretty much forcing everybody to do this, I think it was probably long overdue, and we were moving toward this way anyway. We just knew the bill was coming, so we wait to see what it was said in there. We didn't want to purchase something and not meet the requirements, so we waited on it to come out. Right now, we still track all of our uses of force just through our normal pistol system and our in-house system. The problem is, it doesn't give us early warning indicators, and everything we do we have to track by hand. So I can go back and I can look at any use of force that we've had, any pursuit that we've had, any officer injury that we've had, any citizen injury that we've had, any complaint that we've had, but we got to do it manually. So I would have to run it just like that. So with this new software, it's just a piece of the puzzle. It allows us to track it automatically, and if you hit a certain number within a certain time frame, which we will set, it'll give us an alert system that we need to go back and look at all these incidents. Now, I do need to tell you this. Just because the system alerts does not mean there's wrongdoing. Absolutely not. You need to understand how our use of force system works. We document everything. To get a use of force in our system doesn't take very much at all, and that's the way we want it to be. We want to document as much as we can. But for us, for the early warning system, we want to go back and track, but every one of those things may not be a bad thing, like I just said. Our use of force may be something with your baton. It could be pepper spray. It could be a punch, a knee strike. Well, there's things that you think of. But we also have in our use of force system, if we have to put a hobble on someone, they're trying to kick our windows out in the back seat, we'll put a strap around their ankles that allows us to keep their feet together, and we lock it in the door where they can't kick our windows out. That's a use of force. We haven't struck them or anything like that, but we go in, that's how we track those things and how many times we use them and in the context we use them. Another example would be if we have someone who's trying to spit in our officers' faces. We have what we call a spit sock that we can put over their head so they can still spit, it's just not going to leave the mask. It's almost like a mesh bag that you would see like a hunter wearing out in the woods. You don't get mosquitoes and stuff like that, same thing. They'll spit, but it won't come out of the mask. That's a use of force. It's pretty non-invasive. We don't strike anybody to do it. It's as simple as putting it over their head. If we have to euthanize an animal, say we have a deer get hit on the side of the road, we get out there and there's probably no saving this animal and we have to shoot it to put it out of its misery, that's a use of force. Clearly we're using our weapon in some capacity. So all those things would go in the system and it may trigger, hey, there's an early warning, something's going on with this officer. They could have those things. We'll have to go back and research every one of those. The system is really put in place, though, designed to get your ones that are abusing force, right, is what it comes down to. And we'll be able to look at those, every one of those incidents, but now we'll have the trigger that goes off. And the software is much bigger than that. There are many companies that do just that component. But with our IA Pro software, it goes much deeper. We'll be able to track so much further. We were moving to a new software anyway. At some point in time, our pistol system is outdated, antiquated. Central Square is no longer supporting that system and giving us upgrades or really the support that we need when we have problems. So we knew we were going to move. We just didn't know where we were going to move. We're still going to do that down the road. This will not satisfy that problem, but the system we're currently using attaches in to our current Central Square, and we're going to leave them hopefully within the next 2 years regardless, as soon as we can find the vendor that we think gives us everything that we need. This software will operate strictly independently through our internal affairs, professional standards, and all of our supervisors will use it. So this is a good thing, believe it or not. I think it's very solid.
Chief Stroud,
Yes, sir.
this is Councilman Holmes. So the system, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, you operates in two ways. One, it catalogs all of your use of force and all the elements that went into that particular
Yes.
incident of use of force. But the predictive measures of the system also allows you to trend if there's a certain officer that has consistently had incidents of use of force.
Yes. Yes, and it'll be our job to go back and review each one of those. Well, they're going to be reviewed anyway, from the time they come in. They're all going to cross a lieutenant's desk, a captain's desk, a major's desk, and then ultimately everyone has to cross my desk. So we'll know that, but I'm not going to be here forever either. So right now we're relying a lot on memory and, just historical stuff that we have to go back and track individually. This system will allow us to bypass a lot of that, and it will give us the alerts if we hit numbers that we set in there that we deem to be, okay, this is concerning. But then again, once we review them, it may not be concerning at all. Every one of those uses of force may be just fine.
Will any other agency have access to this, or will it just be High Point? Or will you have to report out if there's something that you feel that you need to report out?
Yeah, it'll allow us to report out, but no one else will have access, which we don't want. I mean,
Right.
That is the last thing. We don't want someone tampering with our software. Now, this is probably the most popular software, I would say, in the business. I mean, a lot of people are, well, clearly, we got Senate Bill 300 coming up, so people are going into getting this. And I think, in the paperwork that I've got, I think it lists already 15 agencies that are using it, and all of our neighbors are. Okay. We were talking to each other, well, what are you gonna buy? What are you gonna do? So we're not falling in line. I think this is the way to go and the best one, clearly.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well-
Since the states want us to do this, is there any state funds to cover this, or is it all High Point funds?
All High Point funds. Yeah.
And with this warning system, I guess the goal would be if an officer starts leaning towards, this is Councilman Joe's, by the way, we start seeing a few early warning signs, was that just trigger them to go through some training to kind of just make sure that everything's under control?
It could, depending on, again, we'll have to go back and review each one. Again, we could have, let's say we're going to set their own parameters on the triggers, when it'll alert. Let's say, I'll just thought numbers, you get 5 within a month period. We would go back and look at all 5 of those that are triggering to see if we complied with policy, and we did what we were supposed to do. Now, if they're already outside of policy, which is very rare, I might add. I mean, considering the amount of force that we use, very rarely are we outside of policy. I can't think of any here recently in my tenure where we've been outside of policy. That's good. I don't have any jumping to my brain. But we would go in and review each one of those at that point in time. Now, if we did see something that we thought we need to retrain on, maybe they need to get in some de-escalation stuff. Maybe they're not the greatest communicator. Not everybody is. Then we may do that. So, but that would be up to us. We're going to have to dictate that part. That's not dictated by the state.
I think it sounds like a good investment.
It is a good thing. I mean, it's overdue.
Sure.
Well, I don't think that any question this council supports the men and women in our police force. I do feel like that, I just want to confirm, this is basically a reinforcement of policy with quicker action that's going after the very few.
Yes. Yes, correct. I mean, the derivative, I mean, this really was pushed by a lot of the high-profile incidents, clearly, that you've seen across the country.
And it can be preventative too, right? I mean, don't you think something like this kind of prevents somebody from maybe accidentally going a little bit too far?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
clearly it's going to, well, I think you've already been tightened up in the profession quite a bit. I mean, historically, we've never had this issue since I've been here, almost 27 years. We just don't abuse force, but I can't say that for the other, 18,000 across the nation that are all doing it too. So clearly there's been some issues that we need to address, but I haven't seen it here. But of course, we're gonna take it pretty seriously. But we always have on use of force side.
Well, it just adds to the work that you guys have to do. And you already have a whole lot of work to do.
We do.
And we appreciate that. And I could probably say a few more things, but I'm not going to, except that I make a motion to approve item 2022-32 if there's no other questions or comments.
Second.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, well, there's a motion and then,
Second, and then I say aye.
no, he didn't second.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry, I thought
gotcha.
you
All right.
seconded
No,
it.
okay.
He did.
Okay, I was watching him after he spoke. Very good. All right, now I've still got to call the roll here. We'll do it again.
Okay, sounds good.
Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore's and aye. That motion passes. All those things I was going to say were in my head. Next item, 2022, let me see, I got a note on that. Nope. 2022-32 is a contract, nope, I missed that one. I got my papers undone here.
He's been
2020
practicing too
hey,
much
you're
dancing.
You're out of order. 2022-33 is a contract with American Processing Group. And that is going to be presented by Derek Boone.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
This project is to dredge, dewater, and dispose of the contents of the Ward Water Treatment Plant's Alum Sludge Lagoon, and it's the North Lagoon. Estimated quantity to be removed is 1,500 dry tons, and this is the sediment and pollutants that are removed as part of the treatment process. We perform this work every 2 to 3 years. It was last performed in 2019, and so we received nine bids on January 19th, and we're recommending going with the lowest bidder. And so we recommend awarding the contract to American Process Group, LLC, in the amount of $733,991. And we have worked with this contractor before. They have actually dredged out one of these lagoons.
Question? When do you anticipate the work to be done?
March, April.
Soon?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve item 2022-33.
Second.
There's a second. Councilman Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peters?
Aye.
Councilman Moore's and aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Our next item is 2022-34. Nope, let me go back to that and make an amendment. I have been asked by staff that item 2022-34 be pulled. There are some contractual items within this request that need to be ironed out. So I'm going to make a motion that that item be tabled. There's a second. Councilman Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore's an aye, and Mayor Pro Tem Peters.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Next item is 2022-35. This is a contract, another sole source ask for Atlantic Technical Sales, and the presenter is Matt Carpenter.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is for the purchase of mast arms for the upgrade at the existing signal Hamilton and Cobain Avenue now. It's part of that whole upgrade project for the Cobain Avenue from Main Street to Centennial. I can answer any questions if you have any.
This was pretty much expected. Anything? I'll make a motion to approve item 2022-35.
Second.
There is a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore's an aye. That passes. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Next item is 2022-36. This is a Community Development Housing Department. It's concerning a new position of a compliance officer, Ms. Nina Wilson.
Thank you. This request is the recommendation from an outside legal office that reviewed our programs in community development and housing. And because over the years, funding, like block grant funding and that type of those federal funds, they are being, I guess, monitored and looked at a little bit more closely. Our systems are becoming more and more automated when it comes to reporting. And so in order just to make sure that we have project completion and post-closing compliance and quality assurance checks, one of the recommendations was that we create a position specifically for program compliance. And some of the activities or some of the responsibilities that this position would have would be doing things like our environmental reviews, making sure that we're complying with Davis-Bacon labor standards, Section 3 economic opportunities requirements, and just looking at our processes, procedures when it comes to like our loan portfolio and just various things like that within the department. There are sufficient funds in the current budget for the position, and it will be budgeted for in fiscal year 2023 moving forward, and we're just requesting and recommending approval for this position.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
I think,
I'm
Please.
sorry. Oh, thank you. So then this is just, this position feels an action item from an audit. This was a finding in an audit that this brings it into compliance from the audit finding?
Yeah, it wasn't from our auditors. It was the outside firm that that our attorney, Ms. Carlisle, that she actually recommended Porter and Sproul. So it came from that specific audit that they did, not Cherry Becker, and, the city's attorneys.
and
I'm
I
sorry.
actually think that was done a few years back.
It actually was, and,
It was more of an internal audit.
right.
Okay. Anything else? Make a motion to approve item 2022-36.
Second?
There's a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Next item is 2022-37. This is a resolution of condemnation for 302 Montaloo Avenue. Ms. Kim Thor is going to present.
Hello.
Hello.
This is actually Quabain Avenue now, formerly 302 Montaloo Avenue. There's an improvement project for Montaloo Avenue, which is Quabain Avenue now. This appears to be the only condemnation we'll have to have for a temporary construction easement, which we had to acquire up and down the road. We've not been able to reach this person. It is a vacant lot. The house was demolished by the city, and there is a lien on the property. It is tax delinquent as well. Does anybody have any questions?
I believe, Madam Attorney?
I do have one comment. I wanted to let you know that we're going to continue to try to reach this individual. If anyone hears of this right now and is listening, if any of you know of this individual or someone that knows her, please reach out to them and tell them to get in touch with Kim Thor or me as the city attorney. We'd like to do like an entry and release instead of filing a lawsuit for condemnation. It's just for a small area. It's a temporary construction easement. We're not going to maintain any interest in the property.
Did we figure out whose ward that is? Is it Cyril or Chris?
It is in Chris Williams. And
Okay, Chris
I've sent Chris an email as well,
Okay.
Councilmember Williams, to let him know, he does not know that individual, but he's going to be looking out for that.
Okay, good. So is this something we have to vote on tonight?
Go ahead. We need to move along with the Quabain Avenue project anyway.
To keep the
So,
process going.
yeah, we need to keep the project on time.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'd just like to make a comment for the record that it's not the city trying to take away the property. We just need to use a piece of it for some construction needs. It will be left exactly like it was found, and we are compensating them for that amount.
Yes.
So I just want that clear for the record.
That's correct.
Right, thanks.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve item 2022-37.
Second?
There's a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Where are you going? I got you down for the next one. Maybe not.
I think it's going to be your city attorney. Well, there you go.
Well, just looking at the notes there. Have to keep y'all
We want to keep you on your toes at all.
That doesn't take a whole lot. Item 2022-38 is a grant of easement for Duke Energy concerning High Point City Lake, and presenting is Madam Attorney Carlisle.
Thank you so much. This comes as a request from Duke Energy Carolina for an easement to be granted out at the City Lake property. They have a need, as you would not be surprised with Duke Energy, to have some lines and communication, electrical lines, that sort of thing, that all be buried underground but would be on the city property, so they're needing an easement for that. I believe they already have an easement somewhere in that area, and this will also be in support of the communication and electrical lines that they currently have running out there near that property.
Comments, questions?
Motion approved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, that is the way it's done. Next item is 2022-45. It's a resolution concerning Elliott Sidewalk Communities and a reimbursement agreement, and that will be presented by Deputy Manager Greg Ferguson.
Good afternoon. This item's two parts. First part is the reimbursement agreement for Elm Street Plaza and Appling Way streetscape improvements. And the second part is the addition of that project to our capital improvement program. This project has been developed over a number of years, and as you review the packet, there's a diagram that shows both the plaza and the streetscape and the Appling Way project as well. What's notable is this also connects to the parking lot behind the stadium, and Key Risk will utilize that parking lot for their business interest there. So we're working with the developer and with Kirkland to complete this project as part of the food hall project, so that they're on site, they stay on site, they've already mobilized and pulled a permit. So this simply gives us the ability to reimburse Elliott for the project cost to complete that plaza and complete the streetscape so it's functional, hopefully by the start of baseball season.
Greg, as I look at the map, behind E is out the outlet into the parking that you're speaking of on the drawing?
That's correct. And that'll be pretty much a 5-foot sidewalk with some very limited streetscape, because that area, as you are aware, will probably have another building in the future. So we don't want that streetscape to be too wide. It's merely to connect to the parking lot.
And Key Risk anticipates that to be adequate parking?
Yes, there should be adequate parking. And if you've been over lately, once the food hall construction ceases, there'll be another 100 spaces that will be potentially be added to the gravel, or not gravel, but pavement. So we've got about 100, and so now there's the ability to add another 100 once the construction's over.
So that parking area belongs to us being the city?
It
That's
does.
not part of Congdon, that's not part of,
It's the
Elliott,
city's.
that's the city? Okay. And is that just there for them to use because they're coming to town? Are they paying for that, or?
So the answer to that question is that is part of the master agreement with Elliott, is to provide parking, and it's going to evolve over a course of a number of years. And so for right now, that's the dedicated parking lot, both for baseball and for the Key Risk building. That will change with the construction of a parking deck, but
Right.
I've kind of used the word hopscotch. We're going to have to move the designated parking around, but for the short term, that's the initial parking for Key Risk.
I was thinking that was probably correct, I just wanted to get confirmation.
Okay, pardon me, Councilmember Moore, if I could request, so that we have a complete and correct record on this, I'd like to request that you vote on these separately, and that you take a vote on the capital improvement plan item, and then once you've done that, to move on the reimbursement agreement.
Okay, we were thinking alike. I had a note right there to ask. So.
Thank you so much.
And now I'll probably present the approval wrong, but anyway, we're gonna give it a shot. All right, I'm gonna make if there's any other comments or questions, I'm gonna make a motion to approve item 2022, and I'll call it Part 1 of the Capital Improvement Plan.
Second.
Does that give you what you need?
That's fine, it will be for the addition
Okay.
of this project for that.
Motion and a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. I'll make a motion that we approve under item 2022-45, Part 2, the Elliott Sidewalk Communities Reimbursement Agreement.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Mayor Pro Tem Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones? Aye. Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes.
Chairman, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Now, this isn't really in regards to this, but I did get, one of the businesses along Church Street, you know, they've got some parking, like on-street parking, and most of the employees park in the back, but a lot of their clients come and park on the front, but there is no, like, meter or anything, so people working in the surrounding areas can park in front of one of those businesses and be parked there all day. Has anybody addressed that with the city, or has that conversation come up at all?
I'm not aware of us
Okay.
getting a complaint about that particular
Okay.
street.
Okay.
Yes, I had a call from Ellen.
Yeah, that's who called me.
I
Okay,
spoke with her probably a month or so ago.
okay,
And asked her to submit to us a letter of support for making some parking changes on that lot,
okay.
and we would then look at that.
Okay, so we've made it real easy for her to request that. Is there a form that she needs to fill out?
No,
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's real easy for them to ask what they need to ask.
all she needs to do is just send a letter with some signatures of support from some of the other business owners that are right in that area. There's not that many of them there, so it should be very easy for her to send that to us. But I haven't heard from her since that time. so.
Okay, all right, well, maybe I'll contact her and just see, make sure that, okay, all right,
Okay.
thanks.
Apparently she has. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the last item on our agenda for today, and that's item 2022-39. This is just an item for presentation. It requires no action, and it is the recognition of our Guilford County 2022 property reappraisal revaluation. Presenting is Stephen Howerlick.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As you noted, this is an information item, just to give a brief presentation and overview on the 2022 Guilford County property reappraisal. It's also known as a revaluation. So what is a reappraisal? Overall, it's the process in which all real property is assessed at its market value. I do want to note that it's real property. It doesn't include personal property, so any vehicles, boats, cars, etc., are not included in this revaluation of property. The purpose is to create equity within the tax base, and it is required by North Carolina general statutes, which state that every county must complete a revaluation at least every 8 years. The last Guilford County revaluation was in 2017. They are on a 5-year schedule. For comparison purposes, the other counties that High Point is a part of, Davidson County is on a 6-year revaluation cycle, Forsyth County is on a 4-year revaluation cycle, and Randolph County is on a 5-year revaluation cycle. I don't think there are many counties that are left on an 8-year schedule. Back when that was more common, it created some instances of vast sticker shock, as you can imagine, in that wide kind of length of time. Guilford County does represent 93% of the tax base for the city of High Point. So I mentioned market value. So market value is defined as the most probable or most likely price that the property would sell for. It requires a willing buyer and a willing seller. It implies that the buyer and seller are fully informed of all the purposes of the property, and it recognizes the current use as well as any potential future uses. The process is conducted by in-house Guilford County appraisers. The tax office is a county department. They are completely in charge of the reappraisal. They examine and analyze market activity, including recent qualified sales. They also try and, for these qualified sales, want like comparisons. That can include building dimensions, square footage, the type or quality of construction, heating or cooling types, plumbing, age, condition, desirability, usefulness, etc. To better put that, if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, your most likely comparable sales are going to be other 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I don't want to say that it's completely kind of across the board like that, but that's the common application. There are various valuation methods in the appraisal industry, the market approach, which I've just been speaking about, the cost approach, and then the income approach, which is primarily used for commercial properties, determined on how much income the property can produce. The timeline, the new property values went into effect on January 1st, 2022.
Property owners began being notified this week. The county said that by about the 14th or 15th of this month, they should be receiving their notices in the mail. And the new values will be reflected on tax bills that go into effect with the new fiscal year starting in July of 2022. There is an appeal process. Someone can register an informal appeal within 30 days of receiving their notice in the mail.
Can you appeal it before you get it?
I do not believe so. There is a tax impact. However, 2022 tax rates will be adopted by the City Council later in the year for the FY 22-23 budget. That's traditionally done in May, June. A tax bill is your assessed value divided by 100 times your tax rate. And we will be required to publish the revenue neutral tax rate, and that's a requirement of law, and that rate will be published in the proposed budget. The revenue neutral tax rate is the rate estimated to produce the same amount of property tax revenue with your new values that you would have had from the previous year. It factors in natural growth. In essence, if your tax base goes up as part of the reval, your revenue neutral tax rate is going to be lower than your current tax rate. This slide just shows an example. Assume a house of $200,000 value. The tax bill would be $1,295 at our current tax rate. If that household saw a 10% increase in value, bringing its new value of $220,000, to get that same tax bill, the tax rate would be 58.86 cents. And that would be applied across all the properties within the city. For any questions, I can try and answer any you have here. Guilford County has a very good resource on their website at this URL. They have a frequently asked questions section, and they also have a kind of a 2-page brochure which provides some of the information I provided here and also goes into a little bit more in depth and gives more specifics on if you do want to register an informal appeal after you receive your notification.
Question, I haven't done an appeal in a long time. It's probably been 10 years or so. What's the time frame the county has to get back to somebody once they file that appeal? Obviously, it would have to be, I would think, within 60 days or so.
We can double check with the county. Per this form, it says that they will be reviewed in the order that they are received. But we can look that up and get that information to you.
I think there's going to be an overflow of appeals this year because the housing market's just hyperinflated right now. So I'm afraid people are going to get stuck with something that's that's going to be a long-term tax implication on property values that are just hyperinflated. It's going to be an interesting year.
It will be, and I will follow up on that. I wanted, can you find out from the county if you don't know the answer, because it's not hidden news that Blackstone, Corporate Wall Street, lots of others are flocking in all over the country. I think to the tune of about 25% of all houses sold in the last 6 to 12 months, and are way overbidding individual buyers. Do they differentiate when they do these, or are they just plugging numbers into a computer? In other words, do they know who bought, that Britt Moore bought a house versus Blackstone bought a house? Because I can take you through my neighborhood and show you some that weren't bought by individuals.
We can follow up with county staff and just see if that specific criteria is included in their assessments.
Well, if it isn't, I would highly recommend that it may be very quickly to whoever that message may need to go to.
Stephen, is this an automatic trigger reevaluation if you see a property index a certain increase in value, that it automatically triggers a revaluation, or does it has to be requested?
No, this is every 5 years the county is going to do this for all properties.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Stephen. If there's no other questions, is there anything else to come before finance today? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Do I hear any?
Second.
There's a second. Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.